Arizona Territory, 1878. The unforgiving sun beat down on the parched landscape, baking the earth and anything fool enough to stand in its path. Among those fools was Adam Jenson, a young rancher of 25 whose small plot of land sat precariously between Apache territory and the expanding white settlements. His ranch was hardly worthy of the name: a modest cabin, a small corral, and a few dozen head of cattle that seemed more bone than beef. Adam wiped sweat from his brow, his lean, muscular frame tensed as he scanned the horizon. His handsome features were weathered slightly beyond his years, though his clean-shaven face and alert hazel eyes maintained a youthful vigor that belied the hardships he'd endured. The ranch had been his father's dream, not his. After his parents succumbed to fever 3 winters past, Adam had been left alone with a failing spread and mounting debts. The frontier is no place for connections, Adam muttered to himself as he turned back toward his cabin. Out here, attachments are just something else to lose. It had become his mantra, a shield against the loneliness that sometimes threatened to consume him during the long, quiet nights. His parents' deaths had only reinforced what the harsh terrain seemed determined to teach. Caring for anything or anyone was dangerous in this unforgiving land. Better to keep to himself, focus on survival, and avoid the pain that inevitably followed when you dared to love something in this merciless territory. Adam unsaddled his horse and led the animal to water, his mind occupied with the immediate problem of his dwindling supplies. Tomorrow he'd ride into the settlement at Cooper's Creek for necessities. With luck, he might secure some day work to supplement his meager funds. What he needed was clear enough: supplies, maybe extra ammunition, possibly a new axe head. What he truly needed: companionship, purpose beyond mere survival, a reason to build rather than simply exist. These thoughts he pushed away with practiced discipline. As twilight painted the desert in violet shadows, Adam stood at his cabin door, gazing across his pitiful kingdom. In the distance, smoke from Apache campfires rose into the darkening sky. The boundary between their worlds was invisible but understood. He respected their territory, they left him in peace. It was a tenuous arrangement at best. Little did he know that by this time tomorrow, that fragile peace would shatter, and with it, every belief he held about his solitary existence. The following morning dawned clear and hot as Adam rode toward Cooper's Creek. The settlement was little more than a collection of wooden buildings arranged haphazardly around a dusty main street, but it represented civilization in this remote corner of the territory. He'd completed his trading and was securing supplies to his pack horse when the commotion started at the far end of the street. "Apache women!" someone shouted, and Adam turned to see 2 young women being roughly manhandled by a group of miners. They were clearly Apache, dressed in traditional garments, their dark hair flowing down their backs. Their faces showed both fear and defiance as they struggled against their captors. "Caught him stealing from the general store," a burly miner declared, yanking one woman's arm with unnecessary force. "Gonna teach these savages some manners." Adam felt his jaw tighten. The territorial boundaries meant these women were far from their people's protection. Whatever had brought them to Cooper's Creek, they now faced a dangerous situation. The miners, fueled by whiskey and long-held prejudice, were growing more aggressive by the second. "That's enough," Adam called out, surprising himself as much as the crowd. He stepped forward, hand resting casually near his holstered Colt. "Let them go." The burly miner spat tobacco juice into the dust. "Mind your business, Jenson. These savages need to learn. They're just girls," Adam interrupted, stepping closer. "Whatever they've done, this isn't the way." "Since when do you care about Indians?" another miner challenged. It was a fair question. Adam had never considered himself friendly to the Apache, merely cautious and respectful of boundaries. Yet something in the women's eyes, a dignity despite their fear, stirred something within him. It contradicted everything he believed about keeping to himself, about survival being the only goal worth pursuing. "I care about decent treatment," Adam replied evenly. "Let them go, and I'll ensure whatever they took is paid for." The standoff stretched, tension crackling like heat lightning. Then the first miner shoved one of the women toward Adam. "Take your redskin friends then. But don't come crying when your scalp decorates a lance." The women stood beside Adam now, wary but seemingly understanding. He represented their best chance at safety. The younger appeared no more than 16, while the elder might have been 20. Sisters, Adam guessed, noting their similar features. "What were you doing here?" he asked quietly as they moved away from the hostile crowd. The elder sister spoke in halting English. "Medicine. For our father. Very sick." Adam glanced at the small pouch clutched in her hand. "You paid for that." She looked down, answer enough. With a sigh, Adam returned to the general store, paid for whatever they had taken, then led the women and his horses to the edge of town. "The Apache camp is half a day's ride southeast," he said. "Can you make it from here?" The elder sister shook her head. "Raiders. White men with guns. Between here and our people. They will kill us, or worse." Adam ran a hand through his sandy hair, considering his options. The smart choice, the survival choice, would be to point them in the right direction and ride home. Whatever happened between here and their camp wasn't his concern. Yet the thought of sending these young women into danger turned his stomach. It contradicted not just common decency, but something deeper, something he'd buried alongside his parents. "I'll take you," he heard himself say. "But we'll need to be careful." The relief in their eyes was immediate and profound. The elder stepped forward, her dark eyes meeting his directly. "I am Nayeli. This is my sister Ayana. Our father is Chief Standing Bear. He will honor your kindness." Adam nodded, uncomfortable with the gratitude. "Adam Jenson. My ranch is on the way. We'll rest there before continuing." The decision seemed straightforward enough. Escort them past danger, return them to their people, go back to his solitary existence. Yet as they rode toward his ranch, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just upended his carefully constructed world. They arrived at his modest homestead by mid-afternoon. Adam helped the sisters dismount and offered them water and jerky while he tended the horses. "You're home," Nayeli observed, her English improving as she grew more comfortable with him. "You live alone?" "Yes," Adam replied, not elaborating. "No wife? No family?" she persisted. "No." His tone discouraged further questions. That evening, as they sat around his small fire pit outside the cabin, the distant sound of hoofbeats caused Adam to tense. He motioned for the women to enter the cabin while he remained outside, rifle across his lap. 6 riders appeared from the growing darkness, their appearances marking them as the border raiders that plagued both settlers and Apache alike, men who had abandoned civilization for the lawlessness of the frontier. Evening. Their leader called, a man with a scar bisecting his left cheek. "Tracking 2 Apache girls." "Seen him." Adam kept his expression neutral. "Haven't seen any Apache around here for weeks." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Funny, their tracks lead right this way. Lots of travelers pass near here." Adam replied evenly. "I mind my business." "Smart man," the leader said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But we know they came this way, and we aim to find them. Chief's daughters fetch a handsome price to the right buyers down Mexico way." Adam felt ice form in his gut. These weren't just raiders, they were slavers. And they knew exactly who the sisters were. "Like I said," Adam repeated, his finger resting near his rifle's trigger, "haven't seen them." The standoff stretched until finally the leader gestured to his men. "We'll make camp down by the creek. If you happen to remember seeing anything, we'd make it worth your while." After they rode off, Adam entered the cabin to find the sisters huddled together, fear evident in their eyes. "They know who you are," he said quietly. Nayeli nodded. "We were gathering herbs with other women when they attacked. We ran. Others were taken. Our father will send warriors," Ayana added, speaking English for the first time. "But they do not know where to look." Adam ran a hand over his face. "Those men won't leave without you. And I can't hold off 6 of them alone." "Then you will give us to them?" Ayana asked, voice trembling. The question struck Adam like a physical blow. Is that who he'd become? A man who would sacrifice innocence to save his own skin? "No," he said firmly. "We'll leave tonight. Take a different route to your people." The relief in their eyes made something shift inside him. For years, he'd believed connections were dangerous, that caring for others was a liability in this harsh land. Yet here he was, risking everything for 2 strangers. They slipped away under cover of darkness, taking a circuitous route that Adam hoped would throw off pursuit. By dawn, they were deep in Apache territory, where Adam had never ventured before. Each hoofbeat took him further from safety, further from everything he understood. "Not far now," Nayeli assured him as they paused to rest the horses near a small spring. Adam nodded, scanning the horizon nervously. Being in Apache territory made him vulnerable in ways he'd spent years avoiding. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd avoided connections to stay safe, yet here he was, endangering himself for two women he barely knew. "Why did you help us?" Ayanna asked suddenly. "White men do not help Apache." Adam considered the question longer than it deserved. "Seemed like the right thing," he finally answered. "Many know right," Nayeli observed. "Few do right when it brings danger." Before Adam could respond, the distant thunder of hooves interrupted them. Over the ridge came their pursuers, having somehow tracked them despite Adam's precautions. "Run!" Adam shouted, helping the sisters onto their horses. "Head for your camp. I'll hold them off." Nayeli hesitated. "They will kill you." "Better one than three," Adam replied, already positioning himself behind a boulder. "Go." As the sisters galloped away, Adam took aim at the approaching raiders. His first shot knocked the lead rider from his saddle, causing momentary confusion. The second wounded another raider's horse, creating additional chaos. But 6-to-1 odds remained suicide, and Adam knew it. He fired methodically, making each shot count, but the raiders were closing in. A bullet grazed his arm, drawing a hiss of pain. Another shattered stone near his head, peppering his face with fragments. His position was deteriorating rapidly. Just as he was considering making a desperate run for it, war cries echoed across the landscape. Over the opposite ridge, a dozen Apache warriors appeared, arrows nocked and rifles raised. The raiders, suddenly facing overwhelming odds, wheeled their horses and fled. Several fell to Apache arrows before they could escape. The rest disappeared into the distance, dust clouds marking their retreat. Adam stood slowly, hands raised as the Apache warriors approached. Their expressions were unreadable as they surrounded him, weapons still ready. "This one helped Nayeli and Ayanna," came a female voice, and Adam turned to see the sisters approaching with the warriors. "He saved us from the raiders in the white man's town and brought us home." An older warrior studied Adam intently before giving a curt nod. "Chief Standing Bear will decide your fate." Adam was escorted to the Apache camp, uncertainty gnawing at him. He'd survived the raiders only to place himself at the mercy of people who had every reason to distrust white men. As they entered the camp, he could feel dozens of eyes watching him, some curious, most hostile. Chief Standing Bear sat before his lodge, his weathered face betraying the illness that had sent his daughters seeking medicine. Despite his condition, dignity and authority radiated from him as Adam was brought forward. Nayeli stepped forward, speaking rapidly in Apache. Adam caught his name several times as she gestured toward him. When she finished, the chief studied Adam silently. "My daughters say you risked your life for them," the chief finally said in surprisingly good English. Why would a white rancher do this? It was the same question Ayanna had asked, and Adam still had no satisfactory answer. "I couldn't let harm come to them," he said simply. "Many white men speak of honor," the chief observed. "Few show it with action." He gestured to Adam's arm, where blood had soaked through his sleeve. "You are wounded defending my daughters." Adam shrugged. "It's nothing serious." The chief turned to a woman beside him and spoke quietly. She approached Adam, indicating he should follow her to a nearby lodge where his wound could be treated. As the woman, a healer, Adam gathered, cleaned and dressed his injury, he caught glimpses of camp life through the lodge opening. Children played, women worked at various tasks, warriors maintained weapons. It was a community, interconnected and alive in ways his solitary existence wasn't. That evening, he was invited to join the chief's family for the evening meal. Nayeli sat beside him, occasionally translating or explaining customs. Adam found himself surprisingly comfortable. Despite being deep in territory he'd always considered dangerous. "You have helped bring my daughters home safely," Chief Standing Bear said as they ate. "This creates a debt between us." "There's no debt," Adam insisted. "I only did what any decent man would do." The chief's eyes crinkled slightly. "Are there so many decent men on the frontier?" "That has not been my experience." After the meal, Adam was shown to a guest lodge where he could rest. He expected to be escorted back to the border at first light, back to his ranch, his solitude, his careful existence. Yet something about this place, about these people and their connections to one another, made his life seem suddenly hollow. In the morning, he was summoned again to meet with the chief. Standing Bear seemed stronger today, The medicine his daughters had obtained apparently having some effect. "I have considered how to address the debt between us," the chief announced. "It would be simple to give you horses or blankets, but these do not equal the worth of my daughters." "Really, sir, I want nothing," Adam began. The chief raised a hand, silencing him. "My younger daughter has told me of your ranch, how you live alone, how your cattle grow thin, how you struggle against the land." Adam shifted uncomfortably at this assessment. "We cannot use the valley 3 ridges north of your ranch," the chief continued. "The soil is wrong for our crops, but the grass grows tall there. It would feed many cattle." Adam blinked in surprise. The valley the chief described was indeed lush, prime grazing land that would transform his struggling operation. "You would give me land?" he asked, confused. "The land belongs to no man," the chief corrected. "But we will not contest your cattle grazing there, and we will help you move your herd when the season is right." The offer stunned Adam. With access to that valley, his ranch could become truly viable. He could build something lasting instead of merely surviving. "Why?" he found himself asking. "Because you have shown yourself to be a bridge, not a wall," the chief answered. "The territory changes. More of your people come each season. We must find those we can trust among them." As Adam prepared to leave the camp the following day, Nayeli approached him. At 22, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that Adam found increasingly compelling. "You will return to visit?" she asked, her dark eyes meeting his directly. "I suppose I could," Adam replied, surprised by the invitation. "To discuss the grazing arrangements." A small smile touched her lips. "Yes, the grazing." 2 Apache warriors accompanied Adam back to his ranch, ensuring he arrived safely. As they departed, one spoke briefly. "Chief's daughter watches the western ridge when sun sets. Says she looks for weather signs." Adam puzzled over this comment until evening, when he found himself gazing toward the Apache territory as the sun dipped below the horizon. The thought that Nayeli might be looking in his direction stirred something he'd long suppressed. Over the following weeks, Adam worked tirelessly improving his ranch. With the promise of better grazing land, he could justify investments he'd previously considered foolish. He repaired fences, expanded his corral, and reinforced his cabin roof. True to their word, a group of Apache warriors arrived to help drive his cattle to the northern valley when the time came. Among them was Nayeli, ostensibly to translate, but clearly enjoying the opportunity to tease Adam about his poor horsemanship compared to Apache riders. As summer progressed into fall, Adam found himself making regular trips to the Apache camp, first under the pretense of discussing grazing rights or trading opportunities, later simply because he enjoyed the company, particularly Nayeli's company. She began teaching him Apache words and customs. He shared books with her, amazed at how quickly she absorbed new knowledge. They rode together through the territory, Nayeli pointing out medicinal plants or sharing tribal stories about particular landmarks. During one such ride, they stopped to rest near a small pond. Nayeli had worn her hair in a single long braid that day, adorned with a beaded ornament. Her deerskin dress was embellished with intricate quillwork that displayed her considerable skill. "Why do you live alone, Adam?" she asked suddenly. "No wife, no family nearby. Always alone." Adam skipped a stone across the pond's surface. "Seems safer that way." "Safer?" she echoed, clearly finding the concept strange. "When you care about people, you can lose them," he explained. "My parents died 3 years ago. The ranch was my father's dream, not mine. But it's all I have left of them." "So you honor their memory by being alone and sad?" Nayeli asked, her directness both frustrating and refreshing. "I'm not sad," Adam protested. "I'm careful." Nayeli laughed, the sound like water over stones. "The man who faced 6 raiders alone to protect strangers calls himself careful?" The observation struck home. His actions since meeting Nayeli and Ayana contradicted everything he claimed to believe about keeping to himself, about avoiding connections. "Maybe I'm changing," he admitted quietly. "Good," she replied simply. The old Adam was too lonely. As they prepared to return, Nayeli placed a hand on his arm. "My father asks if you will come to the harvest ceremony. It is important to our people. Important that you are there." Something in her tone suggested this invitation carried significance beyond simple hospitality. "I'll be there," he promised. The harvest ceremony was unlike anything Adam had experienced. The entire tribe gathered around massive bonfires, sharing food, dancing, and telling stories. Adam was given a place of honor near Chief Standing Bear, who had recovered significantly from his illness. My people celebrate the Earth's gifts, the chief explained, but also the connections between us. No one survives alone in this territory. Adam watched as tribe members performed traditional dances. When Nayeli joined the dancers, her movements graceful and assured, he couldn't look away. She had become something essential to him, though he barely acknowledged it even to himself. After the dancing, Chief Standing Bear addressed his people, speaking in Apache. Adam understood little until Nayeli was summoned forward, along with himself. "What's happening?" he whispered as they stood before the chief. "My father recognizes you as a friend of the people," she explained. "A rare honor for a white man." The ceremony that followed involved symbolic gifts and ritual words that Adam repeated carefully after Nayeli's prompting. When it concluded, the tribe erupted in celebration, many approaching to clasp his arm or shoulder in greeting where before they had kept their distance. "There is more my father would discuss," Nayeli said as the festivities continued around them. "But not tonight. Return in 3 days." Adam rode back to his ranch the following morning, his mind full of the previous night's events. The acceptance he'd felt among the Apache contrasted sharply with the suspicion he often encountered in Cooper's Creek because of his Indian-loving reputation. Upon reaching his ranch, however, all thoughts of celebration vanished. His cabin door stood open, the interior ransacked. Furious, Adam examined the destruction. Little of value had been taken, suggesting the intruders sought something specific or intended the damage as a message. Outside, crude words had been painted across his corral. "Indian lover beware." Adam's jaw tightened as he surveyed the vandalism. The raiders who had pursued Nayeli and Ayanna had connections in Cooper's Creek. That much was clear. His defense of the Apache sisters and subsequent friendship with the tribe had made him enemies. For 3 days, Adam repaired his cabin and strengthened its defenses, anger fueling his efforts. When the time came to return to the Apache camp, he rode with his rifle across his saddle, eyes constantly scanning the terrain. Chief Standing Bear received him in his lodge, Nayeli at his side, translating when necessary. The chief's expression grew grave as Adam described the vandalism. "These men threaten you because you bridge our worlds," the chief observed. "It has always been so. Those who stand between are targeted by both sides." "I'm not standing between," Adam objected. "I'm just trying to do what's right." The chief smiled faintly. "That is precisely what standing between means." After a thoughtful silence, Standing Bear continued, "There is another matter I wish to discuss. My daughter Nayeli has indicated her interest in you as more than a friend." Adam's eyes widened, darting to Nayeli, whose cheeks had colored slightly though she met his gaze steadily. "In our way," the chief explained, "when a woman chooses, the father must determine if the man is worthy. I have watched you these past months. You are honorable, brave, and kind. These are worthy traits." Adam struggled to find words. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say what is in your heart," the chief suggested. "Do you care for my daughter?" The question cut through all Adam's carefully constructed defenses. In that moment, he realized how completely Nayeli had transformed his outlook. Her intelligence, strength, and kindness had awakened something he'd thought permanently buried after his parents' deaths. "Yes," he admitted, the truth both frightening and liberating. "I care for her deeply." Nayeli's smile was radiant, but her father raised a cautionary hand. "The path you consider is difficult. There are many on both sides who will oppose a union between white and Apache." "I'm already facing opposition," Adam pointed out. "Apparently, I'm an Indian lover regardless." "Then you might as well have the benefit along with the name," Nayeli suggested with characteristic directness, causing her father to chuckle despite the seriousness of the conversation. "If you both wish this," Standing Bear said, "I will not oppose it. But neither will I shield you from the consequences. Each of you must be certain." Adam looked at Nayeli, seeing in her eyes the same certainty he felt growing in himself. The frontier had taught him that connections led to pain, that caring for others was a vulnerability he couldn't afford. Yet here was Nayeli, proving that connection could also be strength, that caring deeply was worth the risk. "I'm certain," he said, reaching for her hand. "As am I," Nayeli affirmed. As autumn progressed, Adam and Nayeli's relationship deepened. She spent increasing time at his ranch, helping improve the cabin and teaching him Apache techniques for living harmoniously with the harsh landscape. Her presence transformed the modest homestead from a place of mere survival to something approaching a home. Not everyone approved of their growing attachment. In Cooper's Creek, Adam encountered open hostility from those who considered fraternizing with savages unacceptable. Among the Apache, too, there were those who viewed Nayeli's choice with suspicion, though respect for their chief prevented open objection. These tensions came to a head one evening when Adam rode into Cooper's Creek for supplies. As he was loading his purchases, the scarred raider who had pursued Nayeli and Ayanna months before stepped from the saloon, flanked by 3 companions. "Well, if it ain't the Indian lover himself," the man drawled, hand resting near his holstered pistol. "Been meaning to settle accounts with you, Jenson." Adam kept his movements calm, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "I've got no quarrel with you," he said evenly. "Best we keep it that way." "That's so," the raider sneered. "You cost me valuable merchandise. Those Apache princesses would have fetched a fine price." "They're people, not merchandise," Adam replied, anger edging his voice. "And now I hear you're rutting with one of 'em," another raider interjected. "That true, Jenson? You taking savage women to bed?" Adam's hands clenched into fists. "Watch your mouth." "Or what?" the scarred leader challenged, stepping closer. "This territory's changing. No place for Indian lovers or breed mixers. Your kind need to be taught a lesson." What happened next occurred with the sudden violence characteristic of frontier disputes. The leader drew his pistol. Adam, anticipating the move, lunged forward rather than back. They crashed together, the gun discharging harmlessly into the dirt. Adam drove his fist into the man's jaw, feeling the satisfying crunch of impact. The other raiders joined the fray, and Adam found himself in a desperate struggle against overwhelming odds. A blow to his head sent him staggering. Another to his ribs drove the breath from his lungs. As he collapsed to his knees, the scarred leader drew a wicked knife from his boot. "Time to send a message to all Indian-loving scum," the man snarled. The knife descended and was intercepted by an arrow that seemed to materialize from nowhere, piercing the raider's forearm. He screamed, dropping the blade as more arrows flew from the darkness at the town's edge. "Apache!" someone shouted, and panic ensued. The raiders scattered as a group of mounted Apache warriors rode into the street, Nayeli among them. She dismounted smoothly, running to Adam's side while the warriors secured the area. "How did you know?" Adam gasped as she helped him to his feet. "Ayanna had a feeling," Nayeli explained, examining his injuries with gentle fingers. "She insisted we follow you." By morning, word of the incident had spread throughout Cooper's Creek and to the surrounding homesteads. Adam Jenson had been saved from certain death by Apache intervention, specifically by the chief's daughter, with whom he was rumored to be involved. The story grew with each telling, becoming both scandal and frontier romance. When they returned to Adam's ranch, he knew something fundamental had shifted. The boundaries he'd once thought so essential had crumbled entirely. Nayeli had risked herself to save him, just as he had once risked himself for her. Their fates were intertwined now, regardless of the opposition they faced. "Your father was right," Adam said as they sat by his hearth that evening. "Standing between worlds makes us targets." Nayeli nodded, applying a poultice to his bruised ribs. "Yet it also makes us bridges. There must be bridges if there is to be peace." Looking at her in the firelight, Adam felt the last of his resistance dissolve. The belief that had guided him for years, that emotional connections were dangerous liabilities, had been thoroughly disproven by this remarkable woman. His isolation hadn't protected him. It had merely ensured he faced his trials alone. "Marry me," he said suddenly. "Not someday. Now. I don't want to waste more time believing the lie that we're safer apart." Nayeli's smile was like sunrise breaking over the desert. "Yes," she answered simply. "Our paths joined the moment you stood between my sister and danger in Cooper's Creek. It is time we acknowledge it." Their wedding took place during the winter solstice, combining Apache traditions with elements of Adam's Christian upbringing. Chief Standing Bear presided, his authoritative presence ensuring that even those tribe members who harbored reservations participated respectfully. Several of Adam's more open-minded neighbors attended as well, creating a small but significant gathering of people from both worlds. As spring arrived, Adam and Nayeli expanded the ranch, incorporating Apache building techniques to create additional structures beside the original cabin. Tribal members taught Adam sustainable hunting practices and effective water conservation methods, while he introduced agricultural innovations that interested the more settlement-inclined Apache. The ranch became a meeting ground where knowledge flowed in both directions. Word of their unusual arrangement spread throughout the territory. Some viewed it with hostility, others with curiosity, and a growing number with cautious approval. Young Apache who wished to understand white ways sought work at the ranch, while progressive settlers came to trade and learn indigenous techniques better suited to the harsh environment than those imported from the East. By the following autumn, Nayeli announced she was expecting their child. As Adam placed his hand on her growing belly, feeling the flutter of new life beneath, he marveled at how thoroughly his worldview had transformed. Where once he'd seen connection as vulnerability, he now understood it as his greatest strength. The family he was building with Nayeli, the community forming around their ranch, the bridges being constructed between cultures. These were not liabilities, but assets in navigating the frontier's challenges. I was so wrong, he confessed one evening as they watched the sunset from their cabin porch. I thought surviving meant standing alone. But true survival happens together. Nayeli leaned against him, her warmth a constant reminder of all he would have missed had he clung to his old beliefs. Some lessons can only be learned through the heart, she observed. The mind resists what the heart knows to be true. In the spring of 1880, their daughter was born, a perfect blend of both worlds with her father's hazel eyes and her mother's raven hair. They named her Hope, for what she represented not just to them, but to the communities they bridged. As Adam held his daughter for the first time, Chief Standing Bear placed a hand on his shoulder. "When you saved my daughters, you could not have known how your path would change," the chief said. Small actions of courage can transform many lives. The ranch flourished as the years passed, becoming known throughout the territory as a place of fair trading and cultural exchange. Adam and Nayeli's union, once scandalized, became a testament to the possibility of harmony in a land torn by cultural conflict. Their daughter grew into a confident young woman fluent in both languages, equally at home in Apache traditions and settler society. On their 5th wedding anniversary, as they watched Hope playing with her cousins from both cultures, Adam reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The risk he had taken in defending 2 Apache sisters had indeed changed his fate, not through the chief's decision alone, but through the transformation that decision had sparked within himself. "Do you ever regret it?" Adam asked Nayeli as they stood hand in hand. "Choosing a life that challenges both our people's expectations?" Nayeli's gaze swept across their prosperous ranch, their beautiful daughter, the community that had formed around them. "The path of courage is never easy," she replied, "but it is always true." As twilight descended over the ranch that had become a symbol of possibility on the frontier, Adam understood that his greatest achievement wasn't the land he had cultivated or even the family he had formed. It was the courage to discard the false belief that had nearly condemned him to a life of isolation. The recognition that in this harsh and beautiful territory, true strength came not from standing alone, but from standing together.